what's up, my Vox and Hops heads? Here I am back, another episode, another week. Here we go. I just came back from one of the final rehearsals for the upcoming Cryptopsy tour. For those of you that don't know, Cryptopsy is leaving on tour next week. We are going to be touring the States and a little bit of Quebec and Ontario up here in Canada. This time around on tour, we're going back out with the mighty aborted, it's going to be aborted, Cryptopsy, benighted, hideous divinity, and we're going all across the States, and as I said, just a little bit of Canada. I wish we were getting more of Canada. I love playing Canada. The fans are amazing, and I'm always disappointed when I see a routing that excludes a big part of my country, and I know that there's a bunch of metalheads out there, so any of you guys that are listening, we want to go there, we want to be there, and we will eventually make our way out towards you to bring the extreme music towards you guys. You guys got to get your tickets for this Blast Beat Party, the Hell Over North America, which is coming up in a week. Next Thursday, this all starts in Detroit, so I'm going to put the link in the description for all the tickets for the upcoming tour. My beer of the week is also included in my pairing of the week, and I had to include it. I saw it coming out. Two of my favorite local breweries did a collaboration, and when I saw this announcement that this was going to happen, I was extremely excited. So the two breweries are Microbrasserie Vox Populi and Brasserie Harricana, and they released an Imperial New England IPA, and it's called Nightcaller. Let me tell you a little about this beer. It's 11% ABV. It's got a 50 IBU. This beer, you pour it out. It has a beautiful, beautiful color. It's not as hazy as a New England IPA normally is, so I'm a little bit disappointed on that end. But that's where the disappointment ends for me on this beer. I really was impressed. The nose is just super, super tropical, fruity, delicious, just mouth-watering, citrusy smells. And then when you take your first sip, you're not disappointed. It falls right into that, the tropical, the citrusy, the waves of flavor coming in, and then right at the end you get nailed with an extremely boozy finish because it's 11% ABV. It's a heavy, heavy beer. It gets distributed in small cans, luckily, and you got to be careful with this beer because it will sneak up on you and it will really, really do some damage. You sort of have to approach it like a glass of wine in that mindset, because if you buy a 4-pack of this and you go through it in the night, your night's going to be over rather quickly. Hence why it's called the Nightcaller, I think. The album that I would like to pair with this beer is Carpenter Brute's Leather Teeth, which came out in 2018. It was on my top 10 album of the years of 2018. You're saying, oh, another synthwave album, Matt. Where's the death metal? I don't know. Something about this beer. It might have a lot to do with the branding that they've used on the can. It just sort of just totally fit into the synthwave. This Carpenter Brute album, which has some hooky, catchy, uplifting moments, infectious beats and grooves. I just kept trying to think of another album that I could pair with this beer because I really wanted to use it for the pairing, and there's nothing more that came to mind except for this Carpenter Brute Leather Teeth album. So the album and the beer that I put together is Microbrasserie's Vox Populi and Brasserie Harricana's Nightcaller with Carpenter Brute's Leather Teeth. Today on the podcast, I went to one of my favorite brew pubs, Brasserie Harricana, and I had the chance to sit down with JF Michaud. JF Michaud is one of the main people involved at Evenko. Evenko is the biggest concert promoter here in Montreal. He's involved with over 500 shows a year, and he's extremely involved with the production side, the booking of Heavy Montreal, or Heavy Montreal, which is one of the biggest festivals for heavy rock and metal music in North America. So check out our conversation where we talk a lot about the festival, a lot about beer, and a lot about life. So all that and more coming up right now on Vox and Hops, episode number 24.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
What's up, everybody? Today, I am live with JF Michaud at Brasserie Harricana.
Buongiorno.
Thanks for coming talking to me on Vox and Hops. Tell everyone a little about yourself. Who are you? What do you do in the music scene?
My name is Jean-François Michaud. People call me JF. I've been working in music in Montreal ever since I was 17. I'm much older now. I like rock music. I like fast music. I grew up in punk. I started bathing into metal about 10, 12 years ago, and I've been doing a lot of that since. I currently work at Evenko, trying to bring the best metal bands and rock bands in Montreal, including Heavy Montreal 77 Music Festival. I probably work on 500 different shows a year, and I like music.
500 shows a year. That's insane.
Yeah, a little bit.
Were you ever a musician?
For about 20 minutes. When I was a kid, I grew up listening to Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins, and I wanted to get a guitar, and I wanted to learn how to play guitar. I wasn't really good at it, and I was in a high school, like not a showcase, but I did a talent show at school with a couple of friends, and we played a few songs like No Effects and stuff like that, and we did one show at school and one show on a street fair a month later, and then we weren't that good. We had a good time, but we weren't really talented at all. But I quickly realized how I was still interested by concerts, by the world of music, and within a year of me playing that talent show at school, I was booking my first show at Lex.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did that all come about? When did you realize that this is something you could do?
I think I started going to see shows, like small local shows, and I realized that the people that were organizing the shows were not, you could talk to them, you could become friends with them, and I became friends with the guys at Lex, with the guys at Greenland, like Paj and Nancy, and I kind of offered my help, say, hey, I'd love to, what you guys do sounds pretty cool. I'd love to help. I'd love to be involved. I think like anybody that grows up in punk or metal, they just want to be part of a scene. They want to be involved. And I offered my help, and I started working. I started building a concert with local bands that I liked, and I think I slowly but surely became friends with people. I started working on shows, offering my help, not really getting money, just doing it for fun, and eventually it worked out pretty well.
Do you remember the first show where you actually made money?
Yeah, it was like the first show I did. And I was so proud of myself. I don't know how much money. Maybe I made like $80 or something.
But still, it's
yeah, it was the first show I ever did, but I took it super seriously. Like I had one of my best friends building a flyer for the show, and I handpicked bands, and back then I was already like really into like marketing, and like when I grew up when I was 7, I was growing up, and my parents were saying, "Oh, this kid is going to be a salesman, is going to be a marketer or something." So I always took this seriously, and I think the first show I ever did, like my dad showed up, and it was like 275 people at Lex for a local show, and he was really impressed, and I was really impressed too. So I probably made like $80 on that show, but it was really special. This beer looks amazing.
Oh, the color's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we just got a delicious, beautiful beer brought to us, which is the Berliner Weisse Fruity, a fruit Berliner Weisse. And they're calling it an acidulé, acidy. Does that work? An ale with cassis, griotte et mûr. So there's blackberries, cassis.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Cheers.
Cheers.
It smells good. Smells fruity, sour, acidy.
It's not too strong.
Oh, it's really good, yeah.
But the acidity is definitely there.
Yeah, it's sour. It's still very smooth. Fruity, obviously. The color's beautiful. It's like a grapefruit pink. It's a really, really nice beer. We are Brasserie Harricana and never makes normal beers.
I've never had a normal beer here.
Yeah, they definitely don't follow trends. I've said it a lot on the podcast. I'm a big fan of this place, and they're always very welcoming when I come here. I would say it's the mythical venue, Lex. Do you have any other venues in your mind which have closed down, defunct venues that you missed from Montreal?
Yeah, like the first show I ever worked with Greenland or Evenko now was Rainbow. I got paid $10 to help bands load into a show.
Yeah, but the stairs suck there.
Yeah, that's why they pay me the big bucks to do the load-in. I've seen some fantastic shows there. Remember a show that was, I think the show was Atreyu, Poison the Well, 18 Visions, Lamb of God, and there was another headliner on top of it. It was like,
Was it Hatebreed?
No, it wasn't Hatebreed.
No? And the circle pit around the pole there? I think that's the show.
Man, the good old days.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of shows there. When I was in Sejep, I was selling merch at venues. I worked at Metropolis, Club Soda, and Spectrum. Which Spectrum would probably be the one room that everybody in Montreal is kind of sad that it closed down. It was probably the nicest venue that ever existed in Montreal. There was soul in there. That's where the Police played the first time they came to Montreal.
Really? I did not know that. I had the chance to play there, so I'm happy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Nice.
3 Mile Scream back in the day. Open for Soulfly. Yeah.
Shit, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw Joe Strummer there a few months before he passed away.
Really?
I saw Damage Plan before.
That's true. That show came through there.
I think that was a week before everything went down with him.
It's true. I played that club in where Dimebag was shot. There's a whole bunch of shit written on the back.
Before or after?
Afterwards, of course, yeah.
Okay, is that room still open?
It's still open. They still do shows there. I did one like 13 months ago.
Is there a statue or?
No, but there's like this, there should be. There's like spray paint graffiti in the back, like R.I.P. Dime, and yeah. You mentioned that you were with Dave Boucher, part of Extensive Enterprise. How did you get into that? Going from the local shows into that?
Well, I was doing local shows and I was having a fun time. And in Sejep, I was selling T-shirts at venues and stuff. And I went to university in the meantime to do communication, marketing, and advertisement. And while there, I applied for a low-paying job at Universal Music to do rock marketing. I actually had a business card that says JF Michaud, rock marketing. And my job was to drop off CDs at radios, at campus radios to get airplays and put up posters for the new. I work for like bands like Nine Inch Nails and Weezer and Children of Bodom and Nightwish kind of stuff. Like Universal by then was distributing Metal Blade and Roadrunner. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of where I got to know like Steph Miller at BCI a bit better, and I started getting a bit more into the metal scene, and that's probably 15 years ago. And so I worked for 4 years at Universal Music, and then I was in the rock marketing department, and people stopped buying CDs, so the department that I was working on closed, and by then I had started doing a couple of shows here and there with Boucher, and I remember we had a show at Club Lambie on Saint Laurent that night, and my wife brought me a bouquet of flowers, saying, "Hey, sorry you lost your job. Hope you find something better." And that night I think we had Poison the Well at Lambie, and I told Boucher, you know what, I'm not gonna apply for another job. Let's try to do this full time. Back then, Dave was still working at HMV.
Yeah.
So both of us had a side job because we were just doing like maybe 10 shows a year, and then from that point on, we're like, all right, let's get serious into this. Let's try to do like 50, 75 shows a year, and then within 2 years, that's exactly what we did.
And he was saying, if it's like 10 years ago, he was saying it was around 8 or 9 years ago that he quit his job and just focused purely on.
It's funny
extensive.
how these two stories align, because that's exactly what happened.
So do you think your involvement and the marketing background helped bring Extensive up from where it was before?
I think Dave always has and still has like some fantastic values, and I think that he loves the music. I think that he loves the scene, and he loves the aura around show business and the show business of metal. But beyond everything, he's a great friend, and he created amazing friendships with everybody in the scene and all the bands that he worked with. So I I kind of came in and say, here's a million marketing ideas. Let's try to take your ideas and let's take them to the next level. And it worked extremely well. That's when Facebook started. So within 3 months, we had built a network of literally every single metal kids in the city. We were able to reach them really quickly with metal shows. And so we went really quickly from doing like 10, 15 shows a year to 75 kind of thing, and the kids were responsive. Everybody was starting a new band, and that's around like the detox stores were like super supportive of what we were doing, and then all of a sudden we were able to create showcases for new bands, and within those 3 years, there's probably like 100 metal bands that started in the Montreal region. Those were like the golden years of Despised Icon selling out two club sodas, Parkway Drive, Bring Me the Horizon, and A Day to Remember selling out Metropolis, and those were definitely the golden years in my mind.
Do you think that it all coincides also with the fact that BCI was no longer around at that point? That you got to do more shows because there was a promoter missing?
Yes and no. I think that by then Steph had moved. He was transitioning into being an agent.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that Dave had kind of picked up the beginning of a new scene, like metalcore and deathcore, and the whole scene of metal bands on Warped Tour. Yeah. Which was not necessarily the generation of Steph. So we did end up doing a few metal shows that BCI had done in the past, but they were transitioning into something else, and I think the whole thing kind of happened kind of naturally, and I don't think there's any animosity between.
No, I wasn't saying anybody. It as an animosity. Just the timeline of it being 10 years. You started. Dave quit his job. You guys started getting serious. You went from doing 15 metal shows a year to doing 50 because there's more bands available to do shows in town because there's a booker missing.
Well, there was definitely. I would say it was mostly new bands.
Okay.
I think there was a massive scene that came up in 2007 to 2009, like all these bands that are still massive today, like Bone of Osiris and The Faceless, and
it's all bands that
came from that.
Started at Lanco with Dave, and now we're building up until
bands that grew up listening to Despised Icon, Cryptopsy, Beneath the Massacre, and Ion Dissonance, and starting new bands.
That's right.
Putting on tighter clothes and like bands like Bring Me the Horizon, who kind of blows my mind how big they got, even like towards like young teenage girls, just because they were dressed differently. They had shorter hair and it was
bigger stretches in their ears.
Yeah, it's kind of different scene, and it's the evolution of and it's great that metal evolved into this. And I think the scene that came out in the 90s and the early 2000s still exists. Like festivals like Wacken and Hellfest are still doing extremely well. But then there was a new generation of kids that say, "Hey, this we also like metal, but we're not we're different generation. We do things differently." And it's kind of cool how I think in Montreal those two scenes were a little bit separated into two for a long time, because there were two different promoters that were doing the old and the young. But I think everywhere else around the world, all those scenes have kind of
just melded together. Yeah. When did your transition to Evenko occur, and how did that come about?
So in 2011, things were going great, not extensive, but I was kind of like ready to try new stuff. I wanted to continue booking punk and metal shows, but I wanted to work on festivals. I wanted to travel. I wanted to work on new things. and I had really great relationships with everybody at Evenko. I had been working with them, lifting boxes and folding wires for 10 years. And I kind of went to them and said, hey, I'd really like to try new things with you guys. And within a month and a half, I started working at Evenko.
For people that don't know, Evenko is probably the biggest booker in Montreal. As you said, they put on 500 shows a year. It's just insane.
Evenko is probably the biggest concert promoter in Montreal. The company is independent. It's Montreal owned. So, compared to other bigger promoters around the world, there's still a very local aspect to our company. Like the owner of our company has an office, 50 meters away from my desk.
You can just get up and walk over and ask him questions, not wait for a response. What is the show that you are most proud of?
You know what? Now that we're still talking about my early days, the first time that I booked a show with Dave at Metropolis with A Day to Remember, the show was sold out. My parents came to the show, and I took them in the loge on the second floor at Metropolis. And my dad was like head banging to August Burns Red, and my mom was like, "Oh my God, the girls in the pit are gonna get hurt." And for me, that was a really special moment that we had gone from two dudes with day jobs booking shows to booking a sold out show at Metropolis. Like the next time I saw my parents, my dad gave me a bouquet of flowers and he said,
"Really?
I'm really proud of you, son." I'm like, wow, I made it. That's awesome.
It's an iconic room.
It still is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's so many great shows there. It's called MTELUS now for people that are of the new generation. It's still a great room. There's amazing shows there almost every night.
Absolutely. What was the show that was the biggest flop?
That's a good question. I worked on a show with, I don't know. There's shows sometimes that you just expect them to do something, and we don't get the same amount of people coming to the show. I don't want to name anybody.
No, of course,
It's just mean for the artist, but it happens every once in a while. I think for the most part we're able to put the right bands in the right room at the right time, but sometimes it just doesn't work. It
could just be circumstance. It could be another show happening that night. Just throws everything off a festival. Are you exclusively involved with booking metal shows and rock shows and punk? Are you involved ever with like a pop artist that comes through?
I work with literally everything. Next week alone, I booked a show with a Swedish artist called Robin.
Okay, no, I don't know them. Yeah.
Who's a very famous female pop star. My wife loves her. I work. I would say that I work mostly with rock music, but I touch a bit of everything. Like I'll even book some odd hip hop shows every once in a while. But rock and roll, punk rock, and metal is what I know best.
Okay, and are you comfortable when you're involved with situations with these artists? Is it all the same when it comes down to doing the job, or do you have to perform differently if it's a metal show versus a rap show?
I think it's the same thing for everybody. I think when you work on smaller shows, there's a bit more of a direct contact with the artist, or sometimes when you work on bigger shows, your only contact is someone that sort of works with someone that works with the artist. So sometimes there's a bit more misunderstanding when you try to create something cool, and then I find it's easier to create magic on smaller shows on smaller level than try to go see Paul McCartney and say, I have this crazy idea.
Yeah. I think he knows what he wants. Yeah. Are you, let's transition to beer. Vox and Hops has a lot to do with beer. Are you a craft beer enthusiast?
I certainly am. And especially so in the last 2 years. I've always been a supporter of microbreweries.
Okay.
And in the last 2 years, I realized that what I really liked is sour beers, which I think it's definitely more popular now than it was 5-6 years ago.
Well, you're right on time for the trend, that's for sure. It's always been big in Belgium, but now over here in North America, it's definitely taken a big upward swing in the past 2 years.
I think I started getting into micros maybe 10 years ago, and I was really into Belgian beers like the Lef, les bières d'abeille.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then eventually I sort of got slightly into IPAs because I think that's what everybody was talking about. And then the first time that I had a sour, I remember I was at a couple blocks away from here on a terrace in the summer, and someone had a pink beer. I wouldn't be surprised if it was this exact same beer. And I said, I'll have the same. So it's really sour. You might not like it. And I'm always down to try something new. And then I had it. I was like, oh my God, that's the kind of beers that I like.
It was like that awakening moment.
Yeah, I've been buying pretty much only that whenever I can find it since.
What is your favorite beer of the moment? When you go out, if you can go buy a beer, do you go buy beer in stores?
I don't buy beers often, and when I do, I'll go to a specific place. I buy my beer and my wine the same way right now. I don't buy a lot of wine at the SAQ. I don't buy a lot of beers at Depths. I'll go to like a Peluso or like very specific place.
Shout out to Peluso.
Yeah.
On Beaubien.
On Beaubien, yeah, and there's another one on Rachel.
Rachel, you're right.
Yeah.
That's the original one, yeah.
I love going to both. Like, I don't remember the last time that I bought a case of 24. Actually, I do. It was 2 months ago because I bought a case of non-alcoholic beer.
There you go.
But I'd rather buy 5 really great beers than buy a case of something else. And so every once in a while, I'll go buy expensive beers at Peluso and try and get 4 or 5, usually sour beers. Yeah.
Awesome. You're involved with Heavy MTL and 77 Fest, you said. Were you directly involved with the creation of the fest, or did you come in afterwards?
I came in, I believe, 3 years into Heavy Montreal.
Okay.
As far as 77, I was definitely part of the creation process. Although it was kind of a natural thing that was bound to happen between and Nick Farkas, my boss at Evenko, and the guys at Greenland, and Nancy Paget and Dan Webster, who have essentially booked every single punk rock shows in Montreal, every punk and metal shows in Montreal for about 25 years. And we had been wanting to have a punk rock festival for a long time, but Vans Warped Tour was still around, and we didn't really want to get into the whole. We didn't want to compete against Vans Warped Tour, and in the meantime, there was a bunch of other festivals that came out booking, being very heavy on punk rock. And then 3 years ago, we kind of all got around and said, "Hey, we love punk rock. Let's do this." And I wasn't around when Heavy Montreal started, but I guess I'm sure it started a bit like that. I'm sure it started between a few guys from my team that says, you know what, we really like metal. Montreal is definitely a metal town. There's a bunch of metal bands coming from Montreal that are doing amazing. Let's try to build a festival. And I think the soul behind Heavy Montreal has always been to put together the highest quality hard rock and metal festival with, the best stages, the best sound system, the best setup for fans of the city to have the best setup, to have an amazing weekend watching bands they love, but also for rock and metal fans from all over the world to come to Montreal and definitely discover the city on its best behavior.
I'm a huge fan of the whole festival, the setup, the layout. I went last year.
Me too.
Is it going to stay in that area?
No.
Really?
The funny part is,
I loved it.
The festival last year was in a site where that was probably never meant to have the festival on, because the festivals have always been on Ile Sainte-Hélène. And then for the last 3 years, the city of Montreal has been renovating the site to make it like a world class level festival site. And in the meantime, we had the festival on Île Notre Dame, which is basically an island that has
A racetrack.
a casino,
And the venue where I got married.
It. No way.
Yeah,
You got married at Pavillon de Jamaïque?
No, it's Canada.
Nice.
Where the backstage, I think the catering all was.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
And so we had the festivals there for 2 years. And but it worked out super well. There was something very intimate about it, and just I think the production guys are happy that we're moving forward to a new site, because being in the middle of a racetrack has definitely a lot of production challenges because it's very narrow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the new site is essentially the site where we had a heavy from 2008 to 2015.
Okay.
It's a massive site with a bunch of trees everywhere, and it's been recently renovated, and it's actually going to be our first festivals there. So we're definitely looking forward to what should be a pretty fantastic, pretty magical site. We're really excited about it.
I really like. I think it's smart they use like the same site for multiple festivals. I guess that was all calculated to, save money and make money at the same time. They put on 77 at the same site. They put on Île Sonic at the same site.
Heavy Montreal.
Yeah.
And Oshiaga.
That's right.
Which is
enormous.
Possibly the best festival in Canada.
The biggest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. The having the stage set up on a site makes it possible for us to try many different festivals and to do something cool for everybody. Like, there's a lot of cities that will have one big festival with basically everything music,
like the Blues Fests in Ottawa.
Yeah, or I was thinking like Lollapalooza, that kind of thing, where they could have the Spice Girls and Metallica play on the same weekend. We're really lucky in Montreal to be able to have like a few weekends, and there's definitely people that like electronic music and metal, and there's two different festivals for it, which is really cool.
Very lucky. What are some of the biggest challenges creating of a festival of this size?
On the booking side, it's the availabilities of the bands.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a nightmare.
Especially in metal, there's a lot of European bands are significantly bigger in Germany, and so we're in the middle of summer. There's obviously other festivals in Germany, so
there's festivals. There's it's insane how many festivals there are in Europe.
Yeah,
you can tour and just play every weekend and play at a different festival. There's like multiple festivals per weekend. It's insane. Yeah,
and so that's a main issue for us. But I think more and more bands, they'll do 1 year in Europe, and then the next year they'll stay in North America. They'll do a handful of festivals. So it is possible for us to have access to.
I also think that the festival's getting really big, Heavy MTL, and it's on their radar now to come and play it.
I think it was always on the radar. People always knew it existed. I think we definitely have a reputation of taking amazing care of the artists and the fans. And I think beyond there's a festival of festivals going on in Canada right now, or in North America, really, where I think since Coachella started working really well in California, all of a sudden every city wants to have a festival. Yeah. So and there's not that many like really big rock or metal acts, so there's a bit of competition with that. But one thing's for sure is that all the artists that come play the festival usually leave going, wow, the food was amazing. Like, we have Chuck Hughes.
Yes, you do. I was going to mention that for everyone.
Possibly the greatest chef in Montreal, doing catering. And the catering at our festivals is basically a bunch of the greatest chefs in the city all working together over a weekend. Like the pizza comes from the Adamo guys in St. Henry. The pasta, it comes from amazing Italian restaurant owners. The vegetarian food is made by Chef Dan Geltner, which is possibly the most underrated chef in the city.
I'm proud that you guys are doing this because I've played festivals. I don't want to say out of respect to the festivals in case I play them again, and the pasta was horrible. It was really atrociously horrible, and it was a big festival. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, my bosses were visionaries. Nick Farkas, Jacques Aubé, and Daniel Glick were visionaries to say, hey, we're not the biggest city in the world, we're not the biggest festival in the world, but what we can do, we can be the best hosts. We can have the best catering, and we can take amazing care of the artists, and they're going to want to come back.
Smart, very smart.
And that's working.
So the hardest part is booking bands. Comes into the terms of like bands like reorganizing their tour routings to fit in Heavy. Falls into that nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, there's still bands today that I've been trying to book for 7 years.
Yeah.
And they're still not working. We got Clutch on the festival this year. We've been trying to get Clutch for 6 years. Their schedule, I don't know what's making their schedule so complex, but we're very happy that we were finally able to get them this year. And there's bands like we would have liked to have Cryptopsy on the festival this summer.
It's going to happen again. We'll be back. We've done
Promise?
it twice. I'm always down. Yeah.
We're recording this, right?
It's recording. What year's lineup is your favorite lineup, if you had to pick one?
Last year.
Yeah?
Yeah. Obviously, our biggest year was the Metallica year in 2014, and that was, the year that we were sold out, and that was massive. There's people coming from all over the world.
How many people is a sold out Heavy MTL?
40 or 45,000.
That's crazy.
It's massive.
Yeah.
I remember that day, I think there was more beer sold on the side of the festival than on the rest of the province combined.
Unbelievable.
Like there's convenience stores that did not get a beer delivery the next week because there was no beer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Did you guys have to stop serving alcohol? Because I know Metallica has a clause, or I've heard there's a clause where after a certain time before their set, no more beer can be served. Did that happen that day?
I have no idea.
Okay.
All I remembered is watching the show towards the end, looking at a sea of like 45 to 50,000 people, going, "Oh my God, I'm involved in this project," and that's really cool. That was one of the peak moments in my career where I was like, "Wow, this is so cool. I'm glad that I'm doing this."
It sounded amazing. I wasn't there because I got married that day.
No way!
And I was at the Canadian Pavilion, which is right on Ile Notre Dame, which is right on the other side of the festival site. And all my dudes were super pissed at me because I booked them on Heavy MTL's weekend, and they had to come to my wedding and miss it.
No way.
So my friends sat outside in the little like patio area, smoking cigarettes and drinking free beer and drinks, listening to Metallica play on the other side of the river because you could hear it all from right there.
You should have hit us up. We would have made sure that you and your friends can come check out a couple songs.
Oh, I will next time.
You could have had your first dance.
When I was saying my vows outside, like our personal vows to each other, 3 Days Grace was playing I Hate Everything About You. You can't make this shit up, you know?
Wow.
If you can, what year would you say is the worst lineup for your personal tastes?
Well, we didn't talk about my favorite year, which was last year. My favorite lineup was actually last year. Last year we had a bunch of bands that I had been trying to get for the longest time, like Baroness, and a band that we booked that nobody thought that we were actually going to pull off was Emperor, because they hadn't been in Montreal in 19 years, and nobody thought they were ever going to come. And then we built a nice relationship with their manager, and their singer Hisham came to the festival 3 years ago and had a great time. We took good care of him, and he wanted to come back. And
it was his solo project that was here.
Yeah, Hisham is a solo project,
yeah.
And they had a great time. So you know what? Last year they said we're going to do 3 shows in the world this summer, and one of them is going to be Montreal, Canada. And for me, that was I didn't even grow up listening to the band, but for me, it was a very special moment that we were able to pull this off. And I think that's definitely in my top 3 moments of the festival.
I've had friends on the podcast, and we've spoken about their favorite Heavy MTL moment, and it was that epic rainstorm.
Wow.
You behind the scenes. How close was it to being called and shutting the festival down before Emperor played? Or is that ever like an option?
No, I don't think so. What I do remember is so right before they go on, I think Marilyn Manson's playing on the other stage, and it starts raining. And then Marilyn Manson, I think, cut his set short. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I walked over to the backstage to see to see the show that was about to start. And I get on stage, and their manager comes see me and says, "This is what you get for booking black metal band." And I started laughing, and I gave him a big hug and say, "Thanks for trusting our festival for one of 3 shows in the world this summer."
It was awesome. It was huge. All of my friends that I spoke to about it loved it. Yeah, that crazy storm.
It's great that after 10 years we're still able to create magic moments, and there are still bands that haven't been in the festival, and there are magic moments that we can still create with the festival, and that's what makes it good. You were asking what was the worst festival?
Yes.
It's 2015. It was the year after Metallica, and we're like, hey, we gotta, now that we have the world's attention because we had Metallica last year, let's try to put together a 3-day festival so that people that want to travel from Europe can have, an extra day, and let's give the Montreal fans an extra day so they can have like a long, proper festival. And the response from people was, hey, I can't get Friday off. You should have.
So Friday was
made this a 2-day festival.
Friday was very quiet.
I don't remember if Friday was a quiet day, but I remember that the overall feedback was, guys, let's maybe stick to a 2-day festival, and let's and the next year, sure enough, we went back to 2 days, and the fans all came back.
Mm-hmm. I like that you do Heavy en Ville, which is a smaller show in a club with like a metal bands. I like how you do that the week before heading up.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that started, but I think it may have been the Summer Slaughter tour that was coming in the city, and at that point we hadn't had them on the festival, and we still wanted to do an event, like a bigger event in the city, and we've been doing it ever since. It's making the festival a 3-day event without forcing fans to be outside in the sun 3 days in a row. I like the intimacy of doing something a bit more, a bit smaller, a bit more special. The night before, over the years, we had Summer Slaughter a couple times. We had Black Label Society doing an intimate show at Corona a few years back. We're not even sure
and
what
the after shows too you guys do, which is cool. I think Cult of Luna pulled one off a few years ago.
They sure did. I love the guys from Cult of Luna. Their manager is one of my best friends, and it's funny. Like when they came to play the festival 2 years ago, they came in a few days in advance. I went to see Celine Dion with them.
Really? Yeah. That's so funny.
And they played the festival. We had an after party with them. They played Astral like midnight or something, and it was fantastic. I love that band so much.
Same here. I'm hearing that there's new stuff coming. Yeah.
Did you hear any of the songs?
No, not yet. No, maybe on the next run though, because I have a friend who's in the next Cryptopsy run. I have a friend who's involved with them.
Nice.
How did you feel when Slayer leaked the lineup this year?
What's that?
When Slayer leaked the lineup this year, the poster. What was the day like in the Evenko office?
I think we were all kind of running around going like, all right, our strategy is in the garbage. Like, how are we going to do this? But like we were about to announce a few days later. There was still a couple of tweaks. There was still a couple of bands that were not 100% confirmed on the lineup. So
really? At that point,
so
too.
we weren't completely ready. but we're like, all right, well, had it happened a month before, we would have freaked out. Like, I remember a few years back, there was a really big festival that got leaked by one of the smaller bands that had received the poster to approve it, and then they just posted it, and like a Lollapalooza type festival got leaked a month before it was announced. But for us, I mean, it was kind of annoying because our marketing team had to scramble. All right, how are we going to do this now? But the feedback was so good that we were like, all right, well, that's not really how we planned this, but the response is great. Wow, this beer looks amazing.
Absolutely. Here, we just got served another delicious beer, another Berliner Weisse, but this time it's a Coffee Berliner Weisse, 3%, and it's served au crémeux, so it's like a nitro, almost a creamer. You can smell the coffee.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's the coffee is natural Ethiopian pilot coffee roasters.
You know anything about coffee?
A little bit.
Yeah?
Not enough. I know that I like it, and I know I like it strong.
Nice.
It's good. The color's nice. It's like a very light hayish color. It's got a nice head on it because it's sort of the creamer.
Is it me or both Saison beers have that color?
Yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful beer.
I find when you get like a beer that's colored like a bit like a lager, but it's really cloudy,
it tends
really
to be a
bad
Saison.
beer.
Yeah, no, it depends. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
What's the worst beer you had on this podcast?
Oof. I tend to only bring and taste good beers.
Okay.
With guests. My least favorite beer would maybe be from, it was my mistake because I was interviewing Chris Kells from The Agonist, and I brought it was supposed to be a Pilsner, but it was a dark Pilsner, from Brasserie. It's a good beer, but it just wasn't what I was expecting.
Okay.
So if I had to pick the one that I enjoyed the least, because it wasn't what I wanted at that moment, it would have to be that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I liked how you guys handled the Slayer thing, your little comment. I hope we're as excited as Slayer, but not as excited as excited as Slayer.
I think it was, we hope that you're as excited as Slayer is for Heavy Montreal.
It was smooth. It was good.
Yeah, I think that may have been Peter DeHayes' idea. He's our marketing guru on the festival, and it was kind of a weird news. And it happened on like 4:30 in the afternoon. It was a bit of a bummer, but you know, you have to roll with the punches.
Shit happens. Yeah.
Oh, shit happens indeed.
What is a band that you mentioned Clutch, but is there like a big mythical band that you've been hunting since the beginning that you haven't gotten to play for Heavy MTL?
I think by now, like, I've been working on the festival for 8 years now, and a lot of the bands, like, you know, we were trying to get the Despised Icon reunion for a few years. When that happened, when we finally got him, we're happy. We got Baroness on the festival last year. It's one of my favorite bands. I was so happy to have them. Who else? I love Parkway Drive, but they're from Australia, and they used to do summers on the Warped Tour a lot. So we haven't been able to get them on the festival yet. One of my favorite bands is Graveyard. I've always we actually have a show coming up with them in about a month, but I've always wanted to have them on the festival. I can't really think of anything else.
It's cool. How important is it for Heavy MTL to book local talent? Do you guys like always
not
save
important at all?
Really? You guys don't like save slots?
We save slots every year. But no, I mean, we save a couple of slots, but we try to incorporate local bands throughout the process of booking the festival. I think the reason why our festival works well is because metal music is a genre of music that's based on people playing music in bands. And I think it's important, if you want to have a festival that's targeting metal music, it's important to have local people involved with the festival, whether it's on marketing or word of mouth, but it's also important to include a bit of a taste of the city. And every year on the festival, we try to have a few establish local bands, but also have some bands, some up and coming bands. And over the years, we had Burning the Oppressor on the festival last year.
That's right. Yeah.
And they were so giddy and they were so excited. And I remember having a long conversation with them at the festival after a few beers, probably. And they're like, "Oh man, this is so cool. This is the best day of our life. Thank you so much for doing this." And we're like, and I was looking at them and was like, "This is the reason why we're doing this." You know, we're not booking these festivals so that the newspapers write a big article about how amazing it was. We book these festivals so that fans come see us and say, "Hey, thank you so much for booking Buenos Aires," or local bands coming say, "I'm so proud to be in Montreal," or "This festival has been so much fun and all my friends were here and I got to play with Emperor and I got to play in front of all my friends and family and I had the best day of my life."
You're like creating ambassadors for your brand almost too. People that will talk about it positively and sell it and, you know, encourage others to come in the future, and they'll probably come back for sure too.
I don't think a festival or anything that involves a lot of people can survive unless everybody kind of becomes an ambassador saying, "Hey, this is my city, this is my town, this is my pride, this is my festival, and I want to tell the whole world about it." I think it's important for people to be proud of the things that exist around them. There wasn't always a metal festival in Montreal. There isn't a big metal festival in every city in the world, and I think as Montrealers, it's important to be proud of what we have, to support what we have, and we always like to have people's feedback because it helps us make the festival better. But it's also important for us to kind of get the feeling that we're doing this for people that are enjoying it and that feel pride and have. Like we see people every once in a while with Heavy Montreal tattoos, or
that's crazy.
Or Heavy Montreal or Heavy MTL, and it's always cool to say, "Man, this guy is so passionate about this festival that he got it tattooed."
That's insane. Yeah. Comments, suggestions for Heavy MTL.
Thank you.
Beer at Heavy MTL.
Yeah.
Will there still be a craft beer tent at Heavy MTL by Trou du Diable?
Oh hell yeah! There's
Okay.
I think it's been 3 years by now that we have. We're trying to create, especially around the smaller stage on both 77 and Heavy. We try to create a little village with really good food, with really good beer. And one of the reasons why I thought last year's festival was my favorite is because that area with the smaller stage, with the microbreweries, was definitely the cool place to be. And there's, I think we had like 16 different kinds of microbrewery at the festival. So it was nice to present a selection to people like you and me that are fans of good brews.
What are some of the limitations of having the craft beers available at all of the kiosks where they sell beer?
One of the limitations of having a big international size festival in a city that's still kind of small like Montreal is that we need to have all the help that we can for financially so that we can keep the festival viable, and one of the ways that we have to do that is through beer sponsors. So thank you very much to Black Label, the sponsor on Heavy Montreal this year again. There's people that believe in what we do, that enjoy the festival, and that are putting money on the table that say, "Hey, we want to be involved with the festival." So it's important that we give people that are supporting us some good visibility, because they're helping us out and they're helping us keep this festival alive.
That's true. So I'll still have to take a walk to get my beer at the small tent.
You know, there's a beer for every occasion.
That's true.
I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to the main sponsor of the 77 Festival, Coors Light. And I'm going to go on record and say that the best beer I've had in my life was about 10 years ago. I was at a golf tournament with my brother. I say hi to Jean-Pierre. it was like a golf tournament for a foundation, and I played golfing like twice a year. My brother was like, "Hey, come play with me. We'll spend some quality time together." And after the 9th hole, there was a tent with people that had like a big bucket as big as a bathtub with some ice cold Coors Light with like lots of ice, and it was so hot on that day, and I had a sip of that Coors Light, and it was the best beer I've had in my life. So there's a beer for every moment, and it's cool that at Heavy we're able to have different kinds of beers in different kind of areas. I love the beer that we're having right now. I would not drink 9 of them.
Have you ever considered making an exclusive craft beer for Heavy, such as Putzafest did?
Yeah, we're talking to people. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or next year, but we're all music and beer nerds. We would love the idea to make this happen. Like, we're not the brewers, and we don't want to push our ideas on anybody. But if there's a brewery out there that wants to do a beer for Heavy Montreal, we'd love to do it. I love whenever there's a brewery that comes up with like the Motorhead beers or the Megadeth beer, à tout le monde, and that kind of stuff. I think like small projects like that, it kind of adds to the mystical of the scene. And say, oh, this band got their own beer. What's the Montreal band that got their own beer made a couple of years back?
Oh, there's many. The Voivod has one.
Oh, really?
Gorguts just did one. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was the Cataclysm beer that I saw.
Yes, they have one as well.
But I had no idea that Voivod
La Tabarnak or something. It's something like that. Yeah. Voivod had one made from Hoffenstark, and Gorguts from Moulin Sept.
What kind of beer is the? I bet that the Gorguts one is quite a special beer.
It's called Obscure IPA. So it's a black
Luke
IPA.
Design the beer?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Yeah,
I love that guy so much. Such a great character.
He's the best. What are your thoughts about Montebello Rock?
I don't know what it is yet. The festival announced they were coming back. I know there's a lot of people that are excited about the festival. I think for a certain era it was the rite of passage to go to Montebello and camp for a few days and go to the grocery store and
there's nothing there
and empty the fridge.
Yeah, well, we'll just lay down for. We're talking about because Montebello Rock Fest, which is a huge festival up in Quebec, went bankrupt and is defunct, from what I understood. And then a week ago or a week and a half ago, there was an announcement made that it's coming back, but labeled as Montebello Rock. So it was like a 3-day camping experience, and the tiny town of Montebello for many years could not handle the onslaught of people that would come to this festival, and the ATMs were empty, all the water bottles were gone, all the food was gone, people park on people's lawns, people camp everywhere. It's a festival which I've played twice, but I would absolutely never go to.
I mean, I've been to the festival a few times. I camped there once.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was in 2011.
Okay.
I went there with Dave, and we went to Canadian Tire. We bought a tent and we camped at the festival. And I haven't done much camping since, but. It was a special moment in time. I don't think that kind of I don't know when's the next time that something like this will happen. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I don't know if it's going to be in Montebello. Maybe someone in Saguenay is going to create something fantastic next year. But in the meantime, there's no camping allowed in Montreal, so I don't think that this is something that's going to happen.
That's one of the reasons why there's no camping at Heavy MTL.
There's no
space either.
I don't think it's a space thing. I think it's legally speaking, I don't think it's possible to have a campground music festival in Montreal. If there was, we'd probably give it a shot. Like, there's technically enough room in the area that we could have
that'd be extra
camping
wild
stuff. What?
I said that would be extra wild.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been done. I don't know if we need to. I think that Heavy Montreal is a different kind of festival which we kind of we put the efforts towards getting like the best sound systems and the best setup to give the fans the best experience at the festival. And Rockfest did something else back in the days, and a lot of people went, including myself, and I saw the last No Use for a Name show at Rockfest, and to this day it's a show that I really enjoy. The singer passed away a few months after, and I got to see one of my favorite bands play their last show there.
Was it easier to book bands this year now that there was no competition? Because a lot of the times when there's two festivals in the same radius, there's like radius clauses that you can't play both festivals, let's say?
I'm going to say this. Yes, of course. In any market where there's a lot of competition, it's harder to book bands, and bands are more expensive. I think competition is good; it's important, but in the sense of having summer festivals with hard rock, punk, and metal music. When there's several festivals, and there still are a lot of festivals around the province, festivals like Rock La Cause in Victoriaville, who's doing some really cool stuff these days. There's still many festivals that book punk and metal bands, but I have to say that it's been easier this year to book bands. There's more bands were available, and at a price that was a bit more reasonable. And the way that I see it, when we're able to afford bands at a reasonable price, it allows us to keep the ticket price reasonable.
Absolutely,
and give
Absolutely.
the fans a better quality lineup for their buck, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. What would be some advice that you can give someone who's thinking of starting a music festival?
Do it.
Yeah.
But I think the best word in show business is baby step. If you want to do something, do it for the right reasons, and do it at your own pace, and don't do it to prove people that you can, and don't do it just because. Do it because you like music. Do it because you like the bands. I booked a festival with Boucher 10 years ago called Extensive Fest, where we essentially had 12 bands combined, and we sold like 1,000 tickets for that. It was at La Tulipe and Lenco on Papineau. And it was fun. It was a big clusterfuck.
You had two venues rolling.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Two venues. It didn't work well at all. It was sold out, but production-wise, it was a nightmare. But it was cool. We did something fun with a bunch of bands that we liked. The Acacia Train played there. It was a band that we loved working with. And I see people booking really cool festivals around the province where they book bands that they like, and sometimes they'll get like a bigger band like Comeback Kid or Despised Icon and Obey the Brave, and they'll be super happy, and they'll build something fun with their friends. And I find that sometimes the people just try to build a festival without understanding how like what's the right way to do it, and I'm not pointing any festival in particular. I know that for the last few years there's been more and more festivals coming at all over the place, and we got to work with many of them, and there's some really nice people out there that really want to create a big happening and do something fun. And that's how I felt when I joined the Evenko team. I wanted to work on festival with a lot of bands and build fun stuff. But baby step is the right way to do it. You build a reputation. Make sure that you know what you're doing.
It's very, very wise advice, sage advice. What steps do I have to take to get a press pass and bring Vox and Hops to Heavy MTL this summer?
I'll get you the right contact. I like what you do. I think it's important that you can make it to the festival. And I think, a beer and metal, what a beautiful what a beautiful mixture. And I think it's important that you meet people and share share your interest of beers, especially Montreal beers. There's such an amazing breweries in the city these days.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I'm glad that we hooked up. I appreciate you taking the time. I have one last question that I thought of as I was coming here, thinking about the Emperor, the rain, if you had to cancel. I played a festival in Germany called With Full Force, and there was a crazy, crazy storm that day. The festival was shut down. All the fans had to go back to their tents. We all got paid. How does that work out? Do you guys have insurances? Is that ever something that you guys have to consider might happen, like an act of God clause?
It never happened to us, so I'm gonna knock on wood and hope that it.
If it happens, you're gonna call me.
I hope it doesn't happen this year, but yeah, I mean, there's
insurance that covers that.
There's insurances that cover some things. That's why contracts are so important when you put together an event. You have to be able to see the best and the worst case scenario and
Absolutely.
be ready for whatever happened. But that goes the same way. If you get a loan at the bank to buy a car, do you know what happens if you get into a car accident?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we always hope it doesn't happen. Obviously, if we get in a situation and we have to cancel the festival, there's certain things that we can do to try to save some stuff to make sure that we don't we don't just have to kill a festival. But
do you want to add anything? Anything you want to shout out aside from your best, worst beer, Coors Light?
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to the festival this summer. We've been tickets are available at heavymontreal.com. We have a great lineup that I'm really proud of. We haven't had a chance to talk much about the lineup, but I'm sure that you, listener, have the internet, and
there's some great bands on it, such as a little band called Slayer.
Yeah, Slayer's last Quebec show. That's pretty huge.
Absolutely.
We're really happy about that.
And another newer tiny little band called Ghost.
I have a cheat sheet. Can I pull it out?
That would help me too. Yeah.
If I may mention a few bands
Absolutely.
playing on the festival this summer, we have Ghost, Quiet Riot, Hatebreed, Cataclysm, Municipal Waste, performing the album The Art of Partying. Watain is doing their first presence at the festival. Metal Church, All That Remains. Despised Icon with the 10th anniversary of their
Day of Mourning
record. Slayer / Anthrax, Clutch, Gamma Ray for the fans of the metal with the boys
power
that
metal.
Go. Yeah. Beast in Black's first North American show. Fu Manchu for the guys that like to smoke Mary Jane when they listen to music. And my personal favorite, a band called Skalmold, coming from Iceland. It's a band that I discovered about a year ago. I saw them play in Iceland with a choir of 100 singers and the symphonic orchestra of the country. And this band is amazing. If you've never heard of Skalmold, go check them out.
I will.
They are very good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, JF. I really appreciate you coming and drinking some beer with me at my favorite bar, Brasserie Harricana.
This is your favorite bar?
One of my favorite brew pubs, for sure.
This bar is great. Yeah. It's got wood. It's pink.
Yeah.
I love it.
All of the stuff, most of the stuff that's here, the owner of the pub, his parents had a restaurant or a resto pub in Alma, Quebec, and a lot of this stuff is from that.
Brasserie Harricana.
That's right.
Let me know next time you come. I live 2 blocks away. I'll come say hi.
Awesome. Cheers. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening right to the end. There was a lot of background noise in that episode. I apologize for that. We were sitting in the pub and it just kept filling up and the music kept getting louder. I was worried as I was recording it, and the content was so interesting I didn't want to interrupt him to change anything, so I just went with it. It is what it is. I'm doing my best always to make the podcast sound better. I'm working on things on the sides, so I hope that you guys didn't mind that too much. As I mentioned, next week, Hell Over North America starts. Aborted, Cryptopsy, Hideous Divinity, and Benighted are out on the road, tearing apart the United States and a little bit of Canada. Get your tickets, it's going to be in the description link. Right after that, I come home for about a week and a half, and then I fly over to Europe, and we're going into a whole Euro run there, where it's going to be Cryptopsy, Ingested, Glory Hole Guillotine, Insight, Night Rage, and Demonical. So got to check this out. This is this whole thing starts off where it's just Cryptopsy alone, playing the Netherlands Death Fest at the O13 in Tilburg. In the Netherlands, I love this venue. It's they used to have the Netherlands Death Fest back in the day, and I remember my first time I played that in 2008. I was so nervous. Behemoth had played that day, and it was just such a great night. I was super nervous, so I'm excited to get back there, get on that stage again, and do everyone proud and do myself proud here in 2019. In Tilburg, best part of Tilburg is going to the Little Devil afterwards. You go there, they have a whole bunch of great craft beers. And even better than craft beers, they have a whole bunch of sick whiskeys. And there's always an after party there, so I'm looking forward to hitting that up. On that tour as well, it'll be my first time in Sweden. Cryptopsy has toured Scandinavia before, but I have never been a part of it. I joined the band in 2007, and they had only toured it, I think, about 2 years before that without me, with Lord Worm. So I'm excited to make my first appearance in Sweden, and it'll be the first club show in Norway because we played Blastfest in Bergen, but now we're going to play Oslo in a tiny little bar club, which I've heard is in the cool, trendy part of the city, so I'm hoping to find some good beer there. After that, I come home, and then I'm going to hit Asia. I'm going to Asia in July, a first major Asian tour for Cryptopsy, so keep your eyes peeled for more details about that. And next week on the podcast, I am with Branislav Panic. He is the guitarist-singer of the band from Serbia called Bane. So I had the opportunity to sit down with him at a local brew pub here. Check all that out when we talk about some of the complications of growing up in Serbia, being a metalhead, trying to find music, getting access to music, and then taking the next step where you decide that you want to start a band, finding bandmates, getting equipment, booking your own tours, and then eventually moving over here to Montreal, which is where he's now located. And we talk about all that. He's got a tour coming up. So check that all out next week on Vox and Hops, episode number 25. Just want to say a big thank you to all of you who are listening to the podcast. I'm always touched and greatly appreciative of all your kind words, your messages. If you want to take it one step further and you like this episode, if you liked any other episodes, please go and rate it 5 stars. It will be easier for other people to find the podcast. And if you hear of people asking for some suggestions for what podcasts to listen, and please shoot Vox and Hops their way. I will greatly appreciate that. So have yourself a great week. Hang out with your family. I know I'm going to. I'm leaving on tour next week, so I'm trying to get all of my family time in as much as I can because I'm going to miss everyone dearly on this upcoming run. But it comes with the job, so hang out with your family, hang out with your friends, hang out with your loved ones, and drink lots of great craft brews. Have a great week. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.